Jawbone is directed by Thomas Napper and stars Ray Winstone, Ian McShane, Michael Smiley and Johnny Harris, as well as being written by Johnny Harris. The movie follows Jimmy, played by Johnny Harris, who used to be a really good boxer, but is currently now in the worst situation of his life. He's a drunk. The flat he lives in, which used to be his mother's, is due to be torn down in a few weeks, and he's unemployed. So yeah, he's pretty much in a really shit situation. However, after reconvening with some friends he hasn't seen in years, he decides to get back in the ring to try and put his life back on track. Now, if you were to compare Jawbone to other boxing movies like Rocky, Southpaw, or even the recent Bleed for This starring Miles Teller, then you will know that they follow a very similar story structure. There's a professional boxer who used to be really good at what they do. They're now at rock bottom and they want to try and put their lives back on track and redeem themselves by doing one last fight. And if you were to compare Southpaw on the story alone, then yeah, it's nothing special. But what makes Jawbone different is the fact that it takes a much more personal approach to this story than, say, Southpaw does, or maybe even Rocky does. And this is mostly down to the way the main character is both acted and written. The writing for this movie is really well done. I thought Johnny Harris did a really good job of making this character seem as vulnerable as possible. Whether it be from the way he looks, where he does look pretty homeless, to the way he does certain things. Obviously, the first time you see him, he's drinking on the streets, and that's an obvious sign that he is currently in the worst situation possible. But it's just little things, like for example, whenever he's talking to one of his old friends, it kind of feels like you're watching a kid talking to a school teacher. You know, they are listening and they are involved in the conversation, but he's kind of acting as if he's just done something wrong, or if he's incredibly vulnerable, and I thought it added to his character that whole much more. Also, other than the writing, I thought Johnny Harris's performance as the main character of Jimmy was very good. He perfectly translates what he wrote in the script to the screen without it ever feeling, you know, flashy or, you know, I'm acting right now. It never feels like that. It feels very genuine and very personal, and I think that's what he was trying to convey in the script, and he perfectly conveys that in his performance. That being said, the supporting cast are amazing in this movie as well. Ian McShane I thought was pretty good in the one scene that he's in, and I would have liked to have seen more of him, but to be honest, having him in that one scene, and just that one scene, I thought was kind of fine after the movie finished, because that scene that he's in is there to just move Jimmy's character progression onwards, and that's that. And I thought for that purpose, I didn't really need to see him again. I thought it would have been nice to initially have seen more of Ian McShane, but after really thinking about it, I thought he was in there for just the right amount of time. However, two of my favourite performances in the entire movie are that of Ray Winstone and Michael Smiley, who are these two guys that own the boxing gym that Jimmy decides to join back again to get his life back on track. And I thought they were really good in this movie. Again, like Johnny Harris's performance of Jimmy, they felt very personal and genuine, like they were real people rather than it looking like actors acting in a movie, and I thought that was really nice to see. Ray Winstone gives one of the better performances I've seen from him, and to be honest, I haven't really seen him in much, and the only movies I have seen him in have been a bit questionable. For example, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, his performance is pretty bad. And in The Departed, even though his performance is good, his accent is pretty shit. But here, he's perfect. He's just the right amount of nuance and kind of father figure in a way, but not entirely. And I really did like what he did with the character, and I thought he was on screen for the right amount of time. And the same goes for Michael Smiley. At first, you're not quite sure what to think of him, and as the movie progresses, he can come across as a dick to Jimmy's character. But he's not doing it to be mean. He's doing it so that by the end of the movie, you get the best possible outcome with Jimmy in the ring. And I really thought that added a much more human and friendly touch to the character that Michael Smiley was playing. I also quite liked the score for this movie, which, fun fact, was done by Paul Weller of the Jam fame. I thought he did a really good job with the score. It perfectly fit the tone of the movie, but never, you know, overshadowed what was happening on the screen. It kind of took a back seat, and for a movie like this, the one thing you don't really want to remember is the score. You want to focus on the acting and the camera work and stuff like that. But in this movie, it's very laid back. It knows just the right times when to pop up again, and I thought it was a really nice, gentle score that perfectly fit the style of the movie. Unfortunately, Jawbone is not a perfect movie, and the main problems I have with it are down to the way they did some of the camera work and stylistic choices that I didn't exactly agree with. Overall, I think Thomas Napper did a very good job directing the movie because it felt very personal and the tone was just right. But in terms of the camera work, there were some choices that just kind of made me confused. For example, especially in the first part of the movie, especially when you first see Jimmy's character, there's a lot of close-ups, and this is for scenes that don't really require close-ups. The first time you see Jimmy, the camera is so far zoomed in on his face that you can just about make out that he's drinking from a bottle of vodka. And there's a lot of that, especially towards the start of the movie. There's a lot of close-ups, and I just feel like if they had zoomed out a bit and used a few wide shots, it could have varied the look of the movie and made it a bit more nicer looking. The other problem I had with the way this movie was filmed is the fact that the camera work at times isn't the steadiest. You may once or twice get these really nice smooth moving shots, but that being said, there are other times where it's incredibly shaky. For example, a lot of these close-ups at the start are not steady at all. They're very shaky, they're very in your face, quite literally, and it does feel a little bit odd in terms of why they chose to do that. But they're fine compared to the ending of the movie, and I'm more in specifically the fight scene that takes up quite a large majority of the third act of the movie. It's this huge climax fight scene, and it is really well filmed for the most part. It never takes you out of the moment, but there are just a couple of moments where the shaky cam gets a little bit too much at times, especially in that fight. Not enough to take you out of the moment, but just enough to kind of notice, oh, you keep the camera steady for fuck's sake. Overall, I did quite enjoy Jawbone, and I do think it was a very unique approach to a genre that is pretty formulaic at this point, and I'm going to give Jawbone a 7.5 out of 10. If you do get a chance to see it, I do recommend you give it a chance. It has some really good acting in it and is written really well, and also has a score that is pretty damn good. So guys, that was my review of Jawbone. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.